Mr. Fashua.
Well, thank you very much. The problem is that we sort of, many times we are wired to focus on the negative side of things. I heard you talking about gas prices and petroleum prices, but there are other things that have also improved in the country. Whereas, yes, we agree that gas prices, petroleum prices have gone up, even before the Iran problem, which actually complicated things for us a little bit, but we're getting out of that as well. But in this country, of course, we've seen that minimum wage has increased. The government actually spurred that one to happen from 30,000 to 70,000 in the minimum. And of course, the private sector has also taken a cue. Most people are earning double what they were earning a couple of years back, some triple, some quadruple. That is the truth. So it's working in some areas. It's not, so we tend to, there's nothing wrong actually in projecting only the negative side, or to actually focus on people who are downtrodden and falling by the wayside, because it helps the whole of society to do better. I made a note a couple of days back that in this same country, it also occurred to me that about 6, 7, 8 years ago, even 10 years ago, we were talking about state government owing salaries, some up to 18 months. Was mentioned specifically, I think I remember Kogi State was one of those, Oshun was one of those, quite a few states in the north as well, even in the east of this country. We're owing salaries up to 12 months, some 18 months. Now, what it means when you owe civil servant salaries for that long, I don't know how people survive for 18 months, even for 2 months without their salary. Some of the states also, they were paying half salary for years, half salary. And this was when minimum wage was 18,000, sometimes 30,000 naira. We can talk about the value of money, whether naira is stronger or weaker or whatever. But the point is that there was a time when people were constrained. So there are two things. The federal government of today, under President Tinubu, has come, and today none of the states, 0 states are owing salaries. I mean 0. And that's remarkable. Now, we're not saying that it's a great achievement to be able to pay salaries, but if we compare to when people didn't have anything at all, and you may say they were civil servants, not everybody is a civil servant, but I also know many private companies that took a cue at that point in time, and they were owing salaries and making their people suffer, even when some of them, the CEOs, were flying private jets up and down. Secondly, very importantly, what the President has done, he is an advocate of local government autonomy. He has pushed for that. Some of the local governments are getting their money directly. Now, more of them will do that. In fact, a lot of them are regularizing their papers, submitting mandate forms at central bank, and so on. There's going to be a final push. Of course, the governors, they have to manage that situation one way or the other. The truth is that there's a lot of imbalances at that level, that if the governors of some of the states don't continue to support some local government, there will be a skew. You find out that the very large local governments, where we have had a lot of people moving to those local governments, just like people move to Lagos and leave some of the states. In Abuja here, most people want to be in Amak. Very few people will stay in places like Kwali, like, and all of those places. There's a place called Yaba in this Abuja and so on. So there's that need for that balance. So but what we have seen is that Mr. President's policy has empowered the state governments, it has empowered the local government, and that is where Nigerians live. So I personally don't buy this rhetoric and this narrative that everybody is suffering in Nigeria, there's more suffering. I don't buy it. And I've not seen any empirical research that actually supports that. What I have seen, and what I'm telling you right now, is that I've seen evidence to the extent that people who live in the local government, in the state government, are now having more opportunities as a result of the policies of the federal government. In fact, the federal government, actually, you could say that they have shot themselves in the leg, because it is in the federal government you see that constraint. And everybody is focusing on Tinubu, when in fact he has actually released the power to the local governments and the state governments to do better for their people. So right. That's the way I look at it.
Let me come in there. Let me stay with you, Mr. Fashua. And to your point of, tripled and quadrupled salaries, and with that comes, the salary increase letters to say, due to the present economic realities, in the country. We are pleased to announce the increment of salaries. So it takes people back to square one, because it's because of the increase in goods, of the cost of goods and services, that salaries are increased. So it's the same thing. You don't have more money, you just have money to spend with the current economic realities. So, I mean, we're back to square one. Yeah,
you're very correct. And it's better to be left at status quo than to be dragged back. Imagine if those increases in salaries hadn't happened. That means that people will be forced to survive on 3 years, 4 years ago salary, given today's reality, where fuel prices, where the cost of everything is. And in fact, also remember very importantly that Nigeria's economy is 70% informal economy. And the reason why we had inflation, food prices increasing in 2023, 2024 is because everybody increased their prices. Everybody who was selling something increased their prices. Nigeria has 39 million MSMEs, meaning that people are always selling something, even though, someone said that we have enough of those, and I think we do have enough of MSMEs, because it's a cry for help anyway. People trying to do something on the side. Many civil servants have small things they're doing on the side. You can't blame them. Everybody is trying to survive. But everybody increased their prices. And in increasing their prices, that means you're getting some more money in. But then again, let's also confuse the fact that there are times when some business models are just not working. The world is changing in very dynamic ways. Artificial intelligence is coming up, all sorts of things. Some of the tech companies, biggest tech companies in the world, they've laid off more than 100,000 people around the world in the last 1 month. So we should also expect that some of these things will come into Nigeria. You see a lot of riots in Belfast, see what's going on in South Africa. They're pushing everybody out. Every country is coming under pressure. It's not just in Nigeria, but Nigeria, I think we were lucky that Mr. President actually made the move that he made, because we cannot keep kicking the can down the road and saying that and expecting things to get fixed up. It's not going to happen. We were paying $10 billion in fuel subsidy every year, which disappeared into people's pocket. You heard what former governor of Kwara State, Saraki, who was then Senate President, said yesterday. Non-existent ships collecting money from Nigeria and all of those. So Mr. President said, look, let's walk away from that permanently. And that's why we're here today. Fuel prices are high because we're now tethered strictly to the market forces and the global markets and so on. The problem in Iran, our prayer is that it ends on time, because people are dying in those places. It's not in our interest. And of course, it's not as if we're making so much money now, because every crude oil is produced on that contract. And Nigeria's part of that is at best 40%, 45% thereabout. So it is good that we have actually made this move, increase that minimum wage. And I am one of those people who will always put the private sector under pressure to say that, look, this minimum wage thing is not just a federal government or state government thing, it's a whole of economy thing. Everybody must do right by their employees, because the employees who collect salary are the most vulnerable in this instance. So once we can do that, then of course we know that some people are at par where they were, and then we now try to fix the vulnerable sector of the economy.
Okay,